Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Um, Today we are going to be reading some stories that I wrote. I have a blog. It's called Short Stories Emma Silver at .blogspot.com. And I've got a Baldur's Gate 3 fan fiction that I wrote in 2024. Um, I already recorded this once, but I didn't really like how it sounded. So I'm gonna go ahead and record it again, record me reading it, and see how I like it better. So yeah, this is kind of inspired by the letters that you find in the attic of the Szarr Palace in the Baldur's Gate 3, detailing the story of Amanita Szarr, who is the niece of Cazador Szarr, and also was turned by Cazador. So I kind of was like reading all of those letters, and I'm like, ooh, I have a D&D character that would be great for this, and would make this interesting. So let me introduce you. Well, the story itself will introduce you to it. So I will just go ahead. And by the way, just quick disclaimer. Anything that is not like an original character, like most of these are not original characters. They are owned by Larian Studios. And then the place names and lore is owned by Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro. So, you know, this is not a canon to the events of Baldur's Gate 3. This is just my fan content. So, I hope you like it, and yeah. My name is Harmony. I don't remember my last name, or if I even had one. Most of my memories have some sort of pain attached to them, be it physical or emotional, often both. I have been a slave most of my life. Less than a slave, actually. Slaves can still choose to defy their masters if they're brave enough or stupid enough to do so. I had no such luxury. I was a puppet, a toy, a tool for someone else's twisted sense of amusement. The spawn of a vampire. 400 years of suffering. 400 years of unwillingly inflicting suffering on others. 400 years of being confined in a windowless room in the basement of my master's house. And especially for a tiefling, 400 years was a very long time. I stole his spellbook and fled the moment his compulsions lapsed. Ran as far away as I could. I do not yet know how I was freed. Did someone kill him? Or did he merely let his guard down, thinking I was broken so much that he no longer needed to compel me? I dare not go back to check. I would rather burn in the sun than risk becoming his again. Now, I am a wizard. I used my old master's spell book to get me started, picking up more spells from scrolls and tomes as I came across them. I learned how to conjure darkness to protect myself from the sun, teleport quickly to nearby areas to confuse my prey, alter my appearance to hide my scars and fangs. I have even learned to mimic some of a true vampire's powers, such as changing shape, turning to mist, and summoning creatures to aid me in battle. My pseudodragon familiar, Fang, scouts out areas for me. His scales are black, so it's fairly easy for him to blend in with the shadows. He has even managed to blend in with the swarms of bats a few times, due to their similar shape and size. From a distance, it was hard to tell them apart. It was on one of those scouting missions when I spotted her. A vampire's spawn in the form of a young girl, clawing at the walls in frustration. I could see the hunger in her eyes. She must have been turned at an even younger age than I was. Her master was starving her. A form of punishment I knew all too well. Fang scouted out the rest of the castle, serving as my eyes and ears. Through the whispers and gossip I learned her name, Amanita Szarr, niece of her master Cazador. He planned to bring her a bound captive with the option of feed or starve. It was in this moment I knew I had to act. I could see myself in that girl. I could see her desperation, her fear. She was terrified of becoming the monster her master was, and I wanted to free her. But how? If I were a true vampire, it would have been all too easy. Just pretend to be a sweet innocent. Let him bring me to her, let her drink enough of my blood to set her free. But alas, I did not have that kind of power. But could I get it somehow? Perhaps I could summon a swarm of mosquitoes to siphon away enough of Cazador's blood without his knowledge. A little disgusting, perhaps, but it might be effective. If I could do that, well, I would not have to keep running. I could finally see for myself if my old master was still alive. And if he was, I could start making plans to end him once and for all. What's the worst that could happen? I asked myself. I can already turn into mist, so if it does not work, I can still get out of there with my life intact. Protect her from the guilt of killing an innocent. The only other option was trying to kill Cazador right off the bat, and even with the aid of my magic, I did not think I liked the odds of facing down a fully fledged vampire all by myself. He already had a few other spawn under his command: Petras, Deliria, Leon, Aurelia, Violet, Yusin, and Astarion. With that many spawn, my odds of surviving such a battle were less than favorable, to say the least. Becoming a true vampire was my best bet at freeing her. I would have to plot and scheme a while longer before I could feel confident in freeing the others, since they weren't allowed to drink humanoid blood. Must have been Cazador's twisted sense of favoritism. But I felt confident I could at least free Amanita with this plan. If the mosquito idea worked, I hoped it would. Would I be able to resist the allure of power once I achieved that status? Would I still keep enough of myself to stay true to what I know to be right? Or would I simply become the monster I was trying to destroy? How much of the vampiric lore was actually true? One way or the other, I'll have to take a risk, I said to myself, clutching a stake in my hand. Should I ever feel the temptation to create spawn is becoming too much to resist, I will end myself before I get the chance. I shoved the stake my bag, then reconnected to Fang's senses. Where have you run off to, Szarr? I soon found him disciplining one of his spawn for what was undoubtedly a minor infraction. Astarion was his name. I hated having to watch without doing anything, but even if I thought it would be a good idea to come barging into his rescue, I did not yet have an invitation to enter. And as much as it pained me to hear his screams, he was serving as a sufficient distraction for the moment. Muttering an incantation under my breath, I cast the spell through my familiar. A large swarm of mosquitoes appeared above them. They stealthily found their way onto Cazador's body, Cazador being completely oblivious to their presence. If all vampires were like me, the mosquito bites probably would not even produce any reaction at all. And even if they did, I doubted he would suspect anything. It took several swarms over several hours before I had collected what seemed like a sufficient amount of blood. A few individuals got caught and killed, but most went unnoticed, returning to me before depositing their supply into a tankard in front of me. Once the tankard was full, I called Fang back to my side. "Thanks for helping me out, buddy," I said, stroking underneath his chin. I sensed Fang's worry. "Do not worry about me," I said. "I trust you will keep me in line if the power starts getting to my head." Fang's worry subsided. His eyes darted to the ground, where a mouse was nibbling on a piece of bread. Then, with a single leap, he pounced on the unsuspecting mouse. "Looks like somebody's hungry," I said with a smile as he enjoyed his meal, purring contentedly. I picked up my tankard full of blood. "I really hope this works," I said as I raised it to my lips. "You're drinking wine out of an ale tankard?" Another patron of the inn I was at had noticed me. A high elf with auburn hair, dressed in leather armor and a green cloak. "Yep," I said, shrugging my shoulders. "Holds more in it than a wine glass does." "I'm not sure a woman so young can handle that much wine in one sitting." "Oh, I'm older than I look," I said with a grin. "Believe me, I can handle it." The elf looked doubtful. "You do not believe me?" I smirked. "Watch this." Without a second thought, I downed the entire tankard in a single go. The combination of flavors was not great, but it did not taste half as bad as I expected. I wiped the corners of my mouth with my handkerchief, then grinned at the elf. "I stand corrected," she said, looking mildly impressed. "What's your name, tiefling?" "Harmony," I said, nodding politely. "Yours?" "Bethrynna," she said. "You live in the city or just passing through?" "I usually do not stay in one place for too long," I said. "I have a toxic ex who is still obsessed with me, and I would rather not encounter him again." "Same," Bethrynna said with a grimace. "Though mine's an orc. He's probably on the verge of death by now, if he's not dead already. Only about 10 more years or so before I can confidently say he's dead." "That is quite a while longer of running for you then," I said. Figured that would be something a normal tiefling would say. "For you, perhaps," she said. "We elves live much longer than you tieflings do." "Ah, right," I said, feigning embarrassment. You would think, as a scholar, I would remember these things. I've never seen a black-scaled pseudodragon before, she said, gesturing toward Fang, who was now perched on my shoulder. He has a genetic mutation, I said. Seems to be serving him well. He can more easily blend in with the shadows. I can believe it, Bethrynna said with a nod. Say, have you heard any news of undead sightings in the area? Cannot say that I have, I lied. Though in a city as big as this one, I would not be surprised if there were some lurking around somewhere. Why do you ask? I happen to be an expert at killing them, Bethrynna said. Fought off hordes of them during my time in Jolt. Even fought a lich once, though he got away before I could finish him off. Only types I haven't encountered yet are revenants and vampires. I met a revenant once during my travels a few months ago, I said. Turned out a prominent noble from Neverwinter was a serial murderer in his spare time, and his latest victim decided to take him down from beyond the grave. Caused quite the scandal. Have you met any vampires? Not that I know of. I lied again. But I have met a vampire spawn a couple years ago. Her master had already been killed, so she was free to act according to her own desires. Oh, really? What was she like? Rather pleasant, actually. Fought off a gang of thugs trying to beat me up for the crime of being a tiefling. I offered her a donation in thanks, but she declined, having already had her fill on the thugs. I thought a vampire's hunger was insatiable. That is what the stories say, but stories are often exaggerated. Fair point, Bethrynna said, nodding. Anyways, I should probably get going before the sun comes up. Easier to find a hiding place while it's still dark. Best of luck, I said, politely nodding as she left. I sighed in relief. She didn't suspect a thing. Fang tilted his head, a query forming in his mind. I do not know, Fang, I said. I do not feel any different. Fang seemed both relieved and worried at once. Relieved that I am still myself, but worried my plan did not work, I guessed. Fang nodded. Well, there is only one way to find out, I said, shrugging. Well, technically there are two ways, but I am not about to try to create a spawn. I will not become my abuser. First stage of the plan was complete. Now, on to stage 2. I had to get an invite. This particular tavern was not the type that I would be likely to find any of Cazador's other spawn. I would have to go to a rowdier establishment, a brothel, perhaps. I shuddered. Would I actually have to have sex in order for this plan to work? I hoped not. After centuries under my master, I did not feel ready to open myself up to that again. I had only been free for about 3 years, merely a blink compared to my 400 years of enslavement. But if that is what it would take to free Amanita, I would force myself through it. Just this once. If I had to. Sensing my uneasiness, Fang nestled his head underneath my chin. Thanks, I said, gently stroking his spine. Remind me to get you a treat when this is all over. You deserve it. The next night, I silently made my way to Frago's Flophouse in Worm's Crossing. with Fang keeping a lookout. This seemed to be the most likely place in the city to find the spawn. All I needed to do was wait. I did not have to wait long before I spotted someone. Astarion, the man whose screams still rattled in my skull. Perhaps I could offer him a night of solace. Comfort him somehow without having him suspect anything was up. You seem a little young to be in a place like this, Astarion said as he sat down next to me at the bar. I get that a lot, I said with a grin. There is probably an elf somewhere in my lineage that has blessed me with a more youthful appearance, but I can assure you I am older than 20. Well, in that case, you're lucky. You look absolutely radiant, darling. Why, thank you. You do not look half bad yourself. Of course, I suppose that is to be expected, given you are an elf. Can I buy you a drink? Astarion asked with a flirtatious smile. That would be lovely, I said, returning the smile. Astarion ordered a glass of wine from the bartender. None for you? I asked. Oh, I don't imbibe anymore. I see, I said, sipping from my glass. It tasted of vinegar, but I weirdly did not mind. For some reason it reminded me of childhood. Did I drink vinegar as a kid? So, who's your friend? Astarion gestured to my familiar, who was perched on my shoulder. Ah, this is Fang. Keeps me company. Keeps an eye out to make sure my toxic ex isn't around. Well, he seems like a delightful little creature. He is, I said, with a smile. You can pet him if you like. He will not bite. Astarion tentatively reached out his hand. I could see the wonder in his eyes as he stroked the scales along Fang's back. Fang purred happily, then flew from my shoulders onto his. Seems he has taken a liking to you, I said with a small laugh. Astarion was speechless. His eyes were a mixture of surprise and delight, with a hint of sadness underneath. I am Harmony, by the way, I said. A pleasure, Astarion said, snapping right back into character. My name's Astarion. Pleased to meet you, Astarion, I said. I chuckled a bit. And it seems like Fang is pleased to meet you as well, given how affectionate he is being. He must trust you. How would you like to take a little nighttime stroll around the city with me? Astarion said as he offered me his hand. Sounds perfect, I said with a smile, placing my hand in his. Gods, your hands feel like ice. Are you all right? I am a little chilly, I said hesitantly. Then how about I take you back to my home and get you warmed up? Astarion wrapped his arm around my shoulders. I was beginning to wonder where I was going to rest my head for the night. I cannot afford to actually pay for a room, so I was originally planning on sleeping in the stables. Oh, I can provide you with much more comfortable lodgings than some dusty old barn, Astarion said as we walked together under the moonlight. Safer, too. And perhaps we could get a little closer while we're at it. What do you say? I would prefer to take things slow if you do not mind, I said. But a warm bed sounds wonderful. Certainly, Astarion said. I could detect the slightest hint of relief in his voice. Whatever makes you most comfortable, my dear. I smiled in appreciation. Neither one of us would have to force ourselves into sex tonight. I was relieved for that. So, is there a particular reason why you're wanting to take things slow? If you must know, I said hesitantly, I have had some unpleasant experiences with sexual intimacy in the past. The last guy I was with, well, I will just say it was not a mutual decision. He just took what he wanted, without even asking what I wanted. He did this several times. Got to the point where I was terrified. Terrified of saying no. Terrified of what he would do to me if I displeased him in any way. It took me several years before I had the opportunity to get out of that situation. That sounds awful, Astarion said, a hint of empathy arising within him. I'm so sorry that happened to you. I appreciate your understanding, I said. I am honestly relieved that I've found someone who is willing to take things slow. Most of the people I come across, they either spit in my face for the crime of being a tiefling, or they want to rip my clothes off the moment they see me. Well, you and I can take things at whatever speed you're comfortable with, darling. Thank you, Astarion, I said with a smile. It means a lot to hear you say that. The pleasure's all mine. We walked and talked all the way to the palace. The sense of impending doom aside, the night was lovely. I could see why Cazador was using him in this way. Not that I condoned it. I knew exactly what was going on, but even I could not help but feel the slightest hint of attraction brewing within me. If I had not known anything about what he was actually doing, there was a significant chance I would have fallen for his charms, hook, line, and sinker. Not that I blamed him at all for what he was doing. I knew full well that Astarion was acting under the commands of his master. Someday, I was going to free that man from Cazador's control. Perhaps I could hire that elf I met the night before to assist me. If she had faced down a lich and lived to tell the tale, she could probably handle a vampire lord. You live here? I feigned awe as we approached the steps of the palace. I do, Astarion said with a grin. He bowed dramatically as he opened the door. Welcome to my humble abode. You have an odd definition of humble, I said with a laugh as he led me inside. This is probably the most extravagant place I have ever had the privilege of entering. If you wish it, all of this can be yours, my love. No more sleeping on the streets. No more scrounging around for scraps. I can give you anything you want. I know not what to say. It almost seems too good to be true. Come now, darling. Would I ever lie to you? I do not accuse you of anything. I am just... Part of me is afraid I will suddenly wake up and realize all this was just a dream. That you were nothing more than a figment of my wild imagination. Well, I can assure you that everything you are experiencing in this moment is just as real as your past. Your life is about to change for the better, my sweet, and I can't wait to share it with you. I could not help but feel sadness for him. How many others did he have to make those false promises to in order to fulfill Cazador's commands? How long had he been suffering? Years? Decades? Centuries? Is everything all right? Astarion asked. Oh, yes, I'm fine. Just a little, lost in thought is all. If only my parents were alive to see me. They would be happy for me, I think. They sacrificed so much for my sake. They would be glad to see it was not in vain. Gods, was I making him feel worse? Or was he just numbed to it at this point? I hoped it was the latter. You're still cold as ice, darling, Astarion said. Let me show you to your room so you can get warmed up. You are too kind, I said with a smile as he led me upstairs into the bedroom. I had seen this room before through my familiar, but seeing it in person was even more grand. I could imagine what must have been going through the minds of countless others who were brought into this room, thinking it was a dream come true, not even realizing they were walking into a trap until it was too late. Fang flew around the room, sniffing and scanning the whole place. He then crouched on the floor by the bed, his eyes fixated on something underneath. You spot something moving under there, buddy? I asked, as he poised to strike. Fang darted underneath the bed. Within seconds, he pulled out the body of a rat and started immediately devouring it. I thought I cleared this place of rodents yesterday, Astarion said. Evidently you missed at least one, but Fang does not seem to mind. Those little critters are his favorite. How does he manage to take down prey that large? The venom in his tail stinger is a powerful tranquilizer. Powerful enough to put an orc to sleep for an hour or two. To his prey, the dosage is lethal. Impressive. Who knew such tiny creatures could pack that big of a punch? Oh, you'd be surprised, I said with a grin. There are lots of animals his size or smaller that are still capable of killing the likes of us. I have even seen an insect bite take down a hulking Goliath. Often the deadliest creatures are the ones we underestimate the most. Astarion looked downwards in silence for a moment. Are you all right? I asked, placing my hand on his shoulder. You should go, Astarion said, refusing to meet my gaze. What is the matter? Was it something I said? No, nothing like that. You've been wonderful. What is it? I have a confession to make, Astarion said, a mixture of fear, guilt, and sorrow in his voice. I'm not who you think I am. I was luring you here for my master. You are a vampire spawn, are you not? Yes. I've been forced to use my body to lure people back for him. It's been a long time since I've resisted, but you're just... I can't do this to you. If I knew for sure I was merely luring you to your death, I might have stayed quiet, but there's a possibility that he could turn you into a spawn. Make you use your body just as I have. Given what you've been through, I can't put you through that. What happened the last time you let a target go? If it's not too painful to talk about. Astarion breathed deeply before responding. Once, in the first decade of my slavery, I found a darling boy who I couldn't dare to bring back to him. So I ran, instead of hurting that sweet man. After Cazador, my master, caught me, he sealed me, starving, inside a dusty tomb, all on my own, for an entire year. A year of silence. Months of scratching my hands raw, trying to carve my way out. More months of not moving at all. Months wishing only for death. I have no words, Astarion, I said, compassion filling me to the brim. That must have been awful. Astarion's breathing trembled. He looked utterly terrified. You are afraid that will happen to you again because you told me the truth, I said. Astarion nodded. I admire your courage in telling me this, I said. So, in exchange, I have a small confession to make to you as well. Astarion looked at me. I am also a vampire spawn, I said. I am a wizard, so I can use my magic to hide the more obvious signs of my condition. My fangs, the scars on my neck. I added a bit of color in my cheeks so I don't look so pale. Did not bother with my eyes, since many tieflings already have red eyes. So, that's the reason why your skin feels so cold, Astarion said. And your toxic ex, as you put it. He was your master. Correct on both accounts, I said. I suffered under him for 400 years. He kept me confined in a single windowless room in the basement of his house. When he wasn't torturing me or using my body for his own sexual pleasure, he was often forcing me to torture and kill innocents, mostly children. I must have killed thousands of them over the course of my enslavement. Even though I know none of it was truly my fault, I still feel guilty sometimes. Like I should have tried harder to resist. How did you escape? I ran the first opportunity I got. I do not know if someone killed him or if he just let down his guard long enough for me to escape, but I have been running ever since. Never staying in one place for more than a few weeks at a time for fear of him catching up to me. I imagine that's been difficult. Quite the understatement, I said, nodding. Other than Fang, I've never really had a real friend. I have long outlived my family, so there is no point in going back home either. So, since you're already a vampire spawn, I suppose the worst Cazador can do to you is kill you, Astarion said. Correct, I said, which is why I am not going to run from this. Worst case scenario, I die and your life remains unchanged. And if that happens, at least I will not have to keep running. Best case scenario, with the aid of my magic, I might be able to defeat him. Perhaps I could even become a true vampire from fighting him, which would allow me to safely go back to see for myself whether or not my old master is still alive. If he is, I could kill him too. Even with your advantages, I doubt you'll be able to kill Cazador. He's an incredibly powerful vampire. I will admit my odds against him are not exactly great, I said. Especially since I have not had much time to prepare. But there is still a chance. If I do not take it, who knows how long it could be until you have another chance at freedom. This isn't your problem, you know. You're right. It's not. But nonetheless, it is worth the risk. I do not know if I could ever forgive myself for not trying. You're actually serious? Absolutely, I said, swallowing. Do not get me wrong, I am still absolutely terrified, but I am tired of running. And this is the best chance I may ever have in being able to make it so I do not have to run away anymore. Is there anything I can do for you to make things easier? If you could just stay with me until he comes. That alone would be a huge help, I said, taking a deep breath to calm myself. Then that's what I'll do, Astarion said. Tonight is all about you. Whatever you need from me, I shall provide. You're so sweet, I said, a small smile flitting across my face. I thought for a moment. Do you have any memories of before you were turned? I know I was magistrate, but that's about all I can remember. What about you? I have a few, I said. I remember the first time my oldest brother rode a horse. He borrowed it from a neighbor's field. Unfortunately, he happened to choose a horse that was not particularly used to people. I can imagine that did not turn out well. Oh, it was a disaster. The horse immediately bucked him off. He came crashing into me, which sent us both flying into a weapons rack at the blacksmith's. Needless to say, my parents were not pleased. Astarion chuckled. It sounds like your childhood was eventful, to say the least. You got that right. My siblings and I got up to all sorts of mischief. Even though the things I remember most vividly from back then have some form of pain attached to them, I don't really mind. All the pain I experienced back then was just the natural consequences of my siblings and I doing stupid stuff. Painful in the moment, but as I look back, I cannot help but laugh. I'm glad you have some pleasant memories to look back on. It has definitely helped me through the hard times, I said, sitting down next to him on the bed. The one thing that has preserved at least a sliver of my sanity through the centuries of torment. You miss them, don't you? More than anything, I said, my eyes welling up with tears. I never got the chance to say goodbye to them. I'm sorry, Astarion said, placing his hand on my shoulder. You deserve so much better than this. The emotions were too much to hold back anymore. I broke down crying. Astarion hesitated a bit, as if he was unsure what to do. Then he slowly wrapped his arms around me, holding me close to him. you, I said, my voice barely above a whisper as I hugged him back. I needed that. Of course, Astarion said, his embrace tightening. You chose to stay, despite the danger. It's only fair I do what I can to help. We held each other for several minutes until my tears slowed to a stop. For what it's worth, I'm sorry, Astarion said, for bringing you into this. Do not blame yourself, I said. None of this is your fault. We are both victims. We both have been through hardships. Nobody should ever have to go through. I only hope we will both be free of this nightmare soon. After a few more minutes, I heard footsteps approaching the door to the room. Who's here? Astarion whispered in my ear. I nodded, swallowing. Astarion squeezed my arm reassuringly before assuming his more flirtatious facade. You know, darling, I think I might just be able to make that happen. I am glad, I said with a smirk. It would be quite a shame if... The door opened, revealing none other than Szarr himself. Excuse me, I said, putting on an offended expression, but last I checked, it was customary for someone to knock before opening the door. For all you knew, we could have been in the middle of... Szarr seized me by the arm. Get your hands off me! I pulled against his grip. Astarion, help me! Astarion turned his head away from me as Szarr started dragging me towards the door. Are you deaf? I dug my heels into the carpet. I said, help me, please! You naive girl, Szarr said, a sinister grin on his face. Do you not realize he brought you to me? What? I feigned a mixture of fury and fear in my voice. You traitor! I trusted you! Fang launched himself into the air, digging his claws into Szarr's face and stinging him repeatedly with his tail. Boy! Kill that wretched creature! Astarion's limbs moved of their own accord. Fang! Get out of here, now! I yelled. Fang looked at me with concern. Do not worry about me, just go! Fang nodded, stinging Szarr once more, before flying up to the ceiling, dodging Astarion's attacks. Ignis! I shot a bolt of fire at the window, shattering it on impact and catching the curtain ablaze. Fang immediately darted out the broken window and out of sight. Useless boy! Put that fire out! You call that a fire? I hissed. I will show you a fire! Ignis! The canopy of the bed caught fire. Ignis! I shouted again, launching another bolt at the wardrobe. Get this girl restrained and gagged, now! With a face of regret, Astarion tackled me to the ground. I will haunt you both from my grave! My voice echoed through the castle as thick metal cuffs bound my ankles and wrists. You hear me? You will never sleep again! A thick strip of leather was wrapped around my mouth and tied tightly around my head. Now go get that fire put out, Szarr ordered as he slung me over his shoulder. Astarion nodded obediently as he went to fetch some water for the flames. He gave me a sorrowful look as Szarr carried me away. I struggled and squirmed as Szarr took me through the ballroom and up to the attic. You are not allowed to let this one go, Szarr said as he roughly tossed me to the floor. Your choices are simple. Feed on the prisoner or starve. I hate you! Amanita screeched as Cazador left the room, locking the attic door behind him. Stage 2 of my plan was complete. Whether or not Stage 3 would actually work, well, that would all depend on whether or not my mosquito idea actually worked. Of course, I was not anticipating being gagged, but I suppose that was my own fault for setting fire to the room. But, nonetheless, now I had no way of casting spells. I would either free Amanita or I would die. Possibly both, depending on how long it took for her to notice a difference. There was no backing out now. Amanita looked at me with a combination between hunger, sorrow, and hesitation. I could tell she was trying to resist, but I knew it was only a matter of time before she succumbed to the hunger. I pretended to struggle in my bonds for several minutes before giving up. Then the actual fear set in. What if Amanita did resist the urge? Would I end up starving to death? How long would that take? How long would I have to suffer before she realized that drinking my blood was the kindest thing she could do for me? I had no way of talking to her. Sweat dripped down my face as these possibilities rattled around in my mind. Fang flew in from the rafters, landing softly on the floor next to me. Sensing my anxieties, he tugged at my gag with his teeth and claws, accidentally scratching me a few times before managing to sever my gag and pull it off of me. Thanks, buddy, I said with a small smile. I owe you one. Fang nodded before narrowing his eyes at Amanita. Amanita looked at Fang with a mixture of awe and fear. Easy, Fang, I said. This is not her fault. Fang relaxed a little, curling up next to me on the floor. Amanita clutched her stomach. As a huge pang of hunger coursed through her. Tears streamed down her cheeks. Hey, it is okay, I said, keeping my voice calm, or at least trying to. I understand. I don't want to kill you, Amanita said, her voice trembling. I know, I said. You have a good heart, but the fact of the matter is you do not really have a whole lot of options. You know? I know you're a vampire spawn. I know that while Cazador still lives, you are bound to his every word. How did you know? My familiar, I said, inclining my head towards Fang. He goes on scouting missions for me a lot. That is how I found out about your situation. I made a plan to try and free you, but as you can probably see, things did not exactly go according to plan. So, you're here because you tried to save me? That is correct, I said, nodding. I knew the risks long before I ever stepped foot inside this castle. Why would you take such a risk for me? 2 reasons. Number 1, he was planning on sending a bound captive up here anyways. If it was not me, it would have been some other innocent, likely one who would be completely oblivious to the situation until it was too late. And number 2, I have been enslaved for most of my life. I know what it's like to be forced to choose between 2 undesirable options. I know what it is like to be trapped in a single room isolated from everyone but my abuser. No one deserves to go through that. Amanita's eyes grew softer. As it stands right now, neither of us have the power to change the situation, I said. I cannot break free of my bonds. You cannot free me from them. And I highly doubt Cazador is going to bring food up here to keep me fed until you either succumb or starve. So either you kill me quickly or we both starve. Personally, I prefer the first option. Amanita's eyes started to water. I know you do not like either of those options. I do not like them either. But with the options we have, killing me would be the kindest thing you could possibly do for me. You're not afraid of dying? Oh, I am absolutely terrified, I said. But whatever you choose, death is an inevitability for me. And given the choice between a fairly quick death or a slow and painful one, I would choose the quick way out. Okay, she said, swallowing. I'll do it. Just give me a moment to prepare myself. Of course, I said. If you think it would help, I'm sure Fang would let you pet him. He has comforted me more times than I can count. You're sure he won't try to attack me? He understands that this is not your fault. He will not hold it against you. Amanita tentatively reached out her hand towards him, slowly stroking his scales. Fang purred in contentment. Yeah, it's kind of like a cat, Amanita said with a small smile. He does, I said with a small chuckle. He even chases rats and mice. Why did you name him Fang? Because his tail stinger looks like a snake fang. That makes sense, she said, nodding. She paused. I don't think you ever told me your name. I am Harmony, I said. I grinned ruefully. I would shake your hand, but unfortunately my hands are a bit stuck at the moment. Do you have any family? None that are still alive. On the plus side, it will not be long before I get to see them again. So, I take it they were good to you? Oh, they were wonderful, I said, smiling. We had our fair share of squabbles every now and then, but we looked out for one another. We cared for each other. I wish my family was like that. Yeah, you have a pretty messed up family, I said, shaking my head. I do not envy you on that front. I think your family would be proud of you, Amanita said. I think so too, I said, breathing in deeply. And when it happens, I think they will be there to welcome me back with open arms. Are you ready for this? Yeah, I said, swallowing. I think so. Amanita scooted over to me, tears slowly falling down her cheeks. I want you to know that I do not blame you for any of this, I said, looking at her. It is not your fault. Amanita nodded, cradling me in her arms. I'll try to be gentle, she said. Thank you, I said with a soft smile. I closed my eyes, then tilted my head to expose my neck. I won't forget this, she said. Fang hopped on top of me, curling up on my legs. I could tell he was trying to conceal his emotions, but he was failing abysmally. It's all right, Fang, I said. I felt 2 gentle pricks in my neck. I started feeling weaker as Amanita began draining the blood from my body. I felt her tears falling onto me. This was it. I was going to die. My fear was gone. It was merely acceptance now. But then, Amanita withdrew her fangs. I feel different, Amanita said, trying to piece things together. Lighter. I can't feel Cazador's influence anymore. It worked, I said, a smile spreading across my face. My plan actually worked. What do you mean? I turned into mist momentarily before rematerializing in front of her, free of my bonds. So, remember earlier when I said my efforts to free you had not gone according to plan? Amanita nodded, her mouth agape in shock. Well, I was not being completely honest with you. I just did not know if my plan to become a true vampire was successful or not. I did not want to get your hopes up in case my plan had not worked. But evidently it did. So, you mean I'm a... Congratulations, Amanita Szarr. You are free. And you are now a true vampire, just like me. How? Let me start from the beginning, I said. I explained the whole story to her. The mosquitoes, how I got in the door, Astarion, everything. I don't know what to say, Amanita said, her eyes watering. She threw her arms around me. Thank you. Of course, I said, holding her close. You can do whatever you want now. Cazador cannot control you ever again. So what are your plans now? I intend to kill Cazador in order to free the others, I said. But I will need to plot and scheme for a while before I can put that into action. If you would like to help me in this endeavor, I would not say no. But the choice is yours. I completely understand if you just want to leave this place and never return. Well, of course I want to kill Cazador, Amanita said. She clenched her fists. I want to make him pay for what he did to me. Well, then, you have an ally in me, I said. I smiled. Maybe even a friend, if you wish. I'd like that, she said with a smile. This is the start of a beautiful friendship, I said with a grin. Together, Amanita, there is nothing we cannot do. About my name, I think I want to change it. Oh? I just don't want anything to do with my family. Not even my name. I want a fresh start. So, any ideas? I want it to be something that gives me an air of mystery. Something like Lady Incognita. Lady Incognita, I said, nodding thoughtfully. Mysterious, yet regal at the same time. I like it. I like it too, she said, a grin spreading across her face. Amanita Szarr is no more. I am now Lady Incognita. And that is the end of the story. Hope you like it. I've got a Ko-Fi link in the description down below. If you want to donate and have the funds to donate, I would appreciate it. If not, that is totally fine too. It's, that's a sample of my cheesy writing, I guess. So, yeah, have a wonderful rest of whatever time of day it is when you're watching this video, and I will see you in the next video, I guess. So, yeah, um, bye.